Good morning. Welcome to Hometown Heroes Podcast. This is Rick Irving. I'm with my co-host Mary Staffel, and today we have a tremendous guest, PK Kelley, uh, Army veteran and a Army Airborne Ranger. I guess is that the kind of title the Rangers still have?
That's correct, sir. I appreciate y'all taking the time and having me this morning.
Well, we appreciate having you on uh, our podcast. And we just look forward to you sharing your story and telling us a little bit about you, your experiences, and then your transition to civilian life. So, PK, where are you from originally?
So I was born in Alabama, actually not too far from Fort Benning, no, Fort Moore, I should say now. Um, we call it LA or Lower Alabama, but I was born there, but I was raised here in Texas, so I consider Texas home, and specifically Flower Mound. So
Okay, so you're up in the northeast section of the Metroplex. I mean, kind of the north central part.
yeah, yeah, very
And
just about 20 minutes or so north of DFW Airport.
and kind of getting some information about you, I stumbled across a picture, and this is a picture of our good friend Don Graves. So I know that if you are running with Don, you're in good company. Just don't let him be an influence on you for being almost 100-year-old veteran. So he's a great American. I'm glad that you all hooked up together. So.
It,
Uh,
he is. He always keeps the mood light, and has his way of being the star of the show. That's for sure.
He
Yes,
does, and
he does love to be the center of attention.
he's a great American.
He's amazing.
So, what caused you to want to join the army?
9/11. I knew that when that happened, I made up my mind pretty much that morning that I was going to serve. I just didn't know what or how, or what capacity that was going to be at the time. I was a decent athlete in high school. I was on the wrestling team. Actually wanted to wrestle in college originally, and wound up just getting burned out. But I wrestled for 13 years and went to high school, and uh, actually transferred my junior year and finished high school in Southern Virginia at a military college prep school, and did that because at the time Texas wasn't known for its wrestling programs, and it's much harder to get an offer on a scholarship to go wrestle in college from Texas specifically. So that's why I went. And ironically, the school was ran by mostly Marine Corps veterans, and knowing that y'all work with a lot of Vietnam era guys, two of them that ran the former president and then the president of the school when I was there were both colonels in the Marine Corps. One served 45 years active duty. The other wasn't much far behind him. One of them had a book written after him. The book's called The Bridge at Dong Ha. His name's Colonel Ripley. And then the president when I was there was Colonel Wheeler Baker, and they're both the godfathers of Force Recon. So they both entered the Marine Corps in the 50s, and then out of that, they were basically the creators of what became known as Force Recon, and now it's MARSOC in the Marine Corps. And so I was exposed to that early. Three of the guys and one of my wrestling coaches, who ironically is all three of those mentors from that school, are still in my life today. One of them I still work with, talk to him often. We're working on what I was telling you about before we came on. We're working on that together. And it's I was really groomed to go into into special operations from going to that school. I was prepared for it. Um, and when I was there, he even told me, or I had asked him, I said, well, if you could do it over again, what would you do different? And he said, well, at your age, I would go into Ranger Regiment because if you want to go in the special operations side of things, Ranger Regiment's one of the few that you can go into at 18. Most of the others, you're required to be 21 or 22 years old. So you almost have to go into the others after your initial enlistment. Whereas Ranger Regiment, you can go straight in. And then from Ranger Regiment, the next step up from that is going to CAG or Delta.
Okay. Now, one of our listeners, Richard Harden, he lives in East Texas. He's a jarhead, so he I don't know if he'll give you the same advice about going in the Army, but Richard's one of our good friends, and he certainly loves our country. So, Richard, good morning. So, where was that military academy at?
It's in a town called Chatham, Virginia, which is just north of Danville off of Highway 29. So coming out of Greensboro, North Carolina, due north of that. So it sits in between Danville and Lynchburg.
Okay, so that was some good training to really prepare you to go into the Ranger training.
Oh, absolutely. More than anything, it had a lot for me. It was the discipline level at that age, and then that being a big one. But then that particular mentor kind of took me to a different level as far as mind over matter. And so physically and mentally, getting through RIP, or what's now called RASP, or Ranger Assessment and Selection Program. Back then it was called Ranger Indoctrination Program. It was much easier for me. And it's not easy by any means. It's just physically, and getting over the mind games for me, I was prepared for it because I looked at it like it was wrestling practice. That's the way I know I can get through this. And then so like each segment of the selection, I would be like, all right, it's just wrestling practice. And then I would go get to the next one, treat it like a wrestling practice, just get through it.
And your class started out with 268 members.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And only 52 of them finished the class. Correct?
That's correct. Matter of fact, at what we call Cole Range, which is like the hell week, if you will, of RIP or RASP, it was raining the entire week. And so we lost probably it's always the third week of the selection. And we dropped a lot of people that week, specifically because of the weather. It was just miserable.
And that's where you go out and you're doing things night and day and get a minimal amount of sleep, maybe 4 hours of sleep in the whole week or something like that. Or
yeah, it's very similar to that. I mean, and it just depends on what your rotation is like with the people that are in your platoon, and because you have to set up a patrol base and at certain times of night, and they'll tell you, only so many people can sleep at a time, and if they find people falling asleep, then everybody's is not going to have a good time. So it was, you get to the point where they call it droning, where you start to get so tired where you're sleeping while you're awake, if you will, like you're just mentally, you're not there. And so like you have to like go tap your buddy on the shoulder to wake him up, that type of thing. But it was a lot of people get dropped, like half the battle, I would say, for any special operations selection program is across any of the units and special operations. Half the battle staying healthy. So like taking care of your feet, making sure you're keeping dry clothes and like that type of stuff. Because if your legs start to chafe and or your feet don't get dry or things like that, that can really puts you in bad shape pretty quickly during that type of stuff. And so you wind up getting a lot of people that get dropped for medical purposes, or they twist an ankle on a ruck march, or doing land nav or something. And then they can't, if they twist their ankle, they can't keep up. And if they can't keep up, they're going to get dropped. So it's better for them to, they'll give you so many opportunities to recycle and go fall back to the next class, but you start back at day 0. So you got to go through the whole thing again. It's not like you pick up where you left off.
Pretty tough training then. I mean, they really whittle down the ones that have medical problems or issues where they can't become a ranger.
Right. Well, and I would even go as far as to say that although difficult, getting there is easier than staying there. So once you get there, you still have to prove your worth, and then you are forced to perform at such a high level that everything is a competition. And if you're not performing at that high level consistently, they're going to boot you. And so it's you have to be able to maintain that. And that's where you really get to see what people are made of. It's because then they have to dig in, and you have to perform at that level day in and day out. It's not just a 1 month long.
That becomes a part of your makeup, is to be able to perform at that high level.
Right. I mean, we even have a saying that the tab is a school, like Ranger School, and because it's just a qualification, it's a leadership course, and then the scroll, which you see there on the screen, is it's a way of life, because it's different. The training cycle, everything about it is different than any other unit in the military. As a matter of fact, even to this day, Ranger Regiment's the only continuously deployed unit since 9/11.
My goodness. And then you became a ranger.
That's correct. Man, look at that youngster.
How long was it after you completed your training did you do your first deployment to Afghanistan?
2 or 3 months.
Okay, so you didn't have much time by the time you completed all your training before you were in Afghanistan.
Yeah, not long at all. See, I finished in that fall. I left the week after Christmas that year, I believe. Yeah.
That was 2008, 2009 was your first deployment?
That's correct. Yeah, it was the last week of 2008 that I left.
And you hit the ground running once you got in Afghanistan. I mean, it wasn't like, let's have an indoctrination and go to classes. You were.
No, it was common that the day that we landed in country, it was very common that we were on an operation that day.
My goodness.
So, because as soon as they do the handoff with whatever platoon or squad or wherever it is that you're going, whenever you do that handoff, you might do 1 or 2 operations with them, just to, them to kind of show you the lay of the land or things that they've learned. Maybe sometimes that happened, sometimes that didn't, but it's quick. And my deployments were during the surge, so that was when we had the highest op tempo pretty much of the entire war. Now, the op tempo in Iraq was way higher than it ever was in Afghanistan. It was just a different war. So, I mean, everything about it was different.
Yeah. Whenever you go out on missions, different size groups for different size missions, is that how it worked?
Yeah. So, Ranger Regiment's unique in the fact that it doesn't happen often, but you can take from a team size or a squad size element, which would basically be your smallest. So roughly 5 to 8 guys as your smallest element. And then you could expand that all the way to a battalion sized operation, which would be all three line companies. And when I was there during the surge, we actually had four companies. We had ACO, BCO, CCO, and DCO, which DCO is no longer a part of it anymore. So
you do day and night missions depending on what they were.
Right. And I can honestly say that I can count on one hand how many missions during the day I went on.
Most of them were at night.
Most all of them were at night.
Here's a picture that I thought was, here these guys getting ready to go on a mission, and they're all trying to catch a little sleep or kind of working things over in their mind. So, yeah,
I think when that photo, there was something going on with the helicopter or something. We were waiting on them to figure it out, but we couldn't. They were working on something inside of that helicopter sitting behind it, that 47. But yeah, that's the nature of the Army. Hurry up and wait.
Hurry up and wait. Same with the Air Force.
I say it's the nature of every branch, I think. We all learn that hurry up and wait, but you also all learn that sometimes you just got to sleep where you can sleep and when you can sleep.
Yeah.
So it's not always comfortable.
While you were over there on the three deployments, I mean, you saw a lot of death and destruction, and not only on the enemy side with having to take out the enemy, but you probably had some of your guys that got injured bad or got killed, correct?
Yeah. I was pretty fortunate. We had some injuries, but we didn't lose. We lost some, but we didn't lose a lot of guys when I was in. I actually really struggled the most when I got out. The week that I pulled away, my truck and trailer and everything I had with me to bring back to Texas, when I ETS in 2011, the guys were rotating back to Afghanistan, and we lost more guys on that rotation than I did the entire time with all three of my other trips combined.
My goodness.
And so I really struggled with that for years. And both the next two deployments, those first two deployments when I got out were not good ones at all. So
and those were for the first two were for a year each, just about.
No, so Ranger Regiment's unique in the fact that that each of our deployments, they ran just depended on the platoon, but they averaged roughly 120 to 145 days, just depending on when your rotation was like where you were in the lineup to come in and go out. And then at the time too, during the surge, they had what they called the team Merrill or the Merrill platoons. So they would leave one platoon or one company back, and essentially they would work with the next battalion that was coming in after you. They would send everybody would leave one platoon back for an additional month, and they would work together. They would essentially go take over a compound, and strategically they would pick it out. They'd go fortify it, take over that compound, fortify it, and raise an American flag and say, "Come fight." And it was highly effective, but it was a different beast. Is what that was.
We've been Facebook friends and social media for a while, and we had a guest, Johnny Yellick II. He was the combat controller, the Air Force combat controller, and you'd mentioned something in the comments on that podcast that you'd worked with a lot of those guys in your deployment. So those guys are pretty critical to getting the air support there and keeping what you need to stay in the fight as far as the air support goes. So that's what kind of really perked my interest in having you on the podcast, is because he was there and you were there and you saw how they work, because it's not just the Army going out there, but you've got the Air Force and other branches supporting. So,
Yeah, matter of fact, so prior to 2007, 2008 timeframes, somewhere in there, the Air Force, their JTACs they would have one JTAC assigned to each platoon and Ranger Regiment, and then a guy by the name of Chris Domay was his name, Sergeant First Class Chris Domay. He was like what you would consider like a Ranger's Ranger, if you will, for a lack of a better term. Just a true leader, great guy, hard as nails. But he was the head JTAC in Ranger Regiment, but he wrote the Army's JTAC program, like their manual, everything. He was killed in 2013 or 14 in October of, may have been 2012. October, I want to say it was like October 5th. He was killed in action along with two other people, but he was killed on his 14th deployment, and just again a great guy. But he has a building named after him at Fort Sill, and the JTAC training facility actually is named after him. So
is that JTAC? Is that the building in part of that training place? Is it the one at Fort Sill?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's
part of their it's part of their big training complex where they so all the Army JTACs start out as forward observers, and is what all the, like, if anybody that enlists in the Army as a FO, they go to Fort Sill for basic, one station unit training. They do the whole thing there, and then if they go into special operations, they will send them back, and they will go, or they're in for a little bit of time. They will send them back to get their JTAC training and certification done. And Domay is the one that wrote that program for the Army.
Okay.
So yeah, that's one of the unique things about Ranger Regiment is a lot of the stuff that's kind of come out of, especially during the global war on terrorism. A lot of the standards and the TTPs and all the different things, that a lot of that originated at Ranger Regiment and then was pushed out to the rest of the Army as time went on. So that's the uniqueness. Probably one of the best things about Ranger Regiment as a whole is they allow us to think, and they look for that. They want you to be a problem solver, which is nice. I mean, they don't want just they want you to be able to follow orders, but they also want you to be able to, because even in the Ranger Creed, though you be the lone survivor, you complete the mission. And so in order to do that, you have to be able to think for yourself, take the place of the man above you or beside you, whatever it may be, and get the job done.
To be a leader too. And
right.
Really, Mary is really good about talking about replacing, always train your replacement. So, that's important that you're always, and you had some of those guys that you were a mentor to, that were younger than you and coming in after you came in, didn't you?
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, and that process, and I can only speak to what I know because I spent my entire career there, but that process starts immediately in Ranger Regiment. So like when you're new, the guys, even if they only came in a month or two before you, those are the guys teaching you the way when you first get there. And then it's the team leader above those guys, and so on and so forth. So it's like that process and that leadership and that, like, all of that starts literally immediately. So it's an interesting, it's a really unique thing. And probably the other part about it that was like everybody has the respect for each other. If you're not just a dirt bag, I mean, a lot of the time, unless you were in, in formation and it was very formal, a lot of times you were just on first name basis. It wasn't, a constant sir or sergeant or whatever. I mean, you gave respect, but it was a mutual respect more so than it was, I demand it, so to speak, right? I mean, everybody that was there had earned their spot. So, I mean, and if you weren't supposed to be there, I mean, like I said, you were gone. I mean, quickly. So
That's all part of being a team, to work together as a team, because you're on that first name basis. You live together, you eat together, you fight together, and like you said, you have that common respect for everyone.
right. One, and even like, time off of work. I mean, there was a lot of weekends we were getting together as a platoon with the families and having a bonfire, doing different things together as a whole. That I don't I know it happened on some occasions in other units, in regular Army units and stuff, from the friends I have that served in that capacity, but not nearly as frequently as it did with us. I mean, it was often. But again, a part of that's because, even when you spouse to spouse, a spouse in Ranger Regiment understands it differently than a spouse that's not going through it. So the grind, that daily grind and Ranger Regiment's way different than anything in the regular Army. The workup, all of it, the training cycle, the amount of time you spend at the range. I mean, just to give you an idea, when I was there, 2nd Ranger Battalion, we shot almost between the roughly 475 or so guys that were shooters. We shot roughly 7 million, like right at 7 million rounds in 6 months during training. So
That's
like you do the math, and that's a lot of rounds, because
a lot of rounds.
You might as well take a lot of the officer corps out of that, because they're not the ones, pulling the trigger that much during training. They're like doing the bare minimums, because they're doing all the admin stuff on the back end to make sure that we get the training time and all that type of stuff. So it's just a unique place. I mean, that again, everything that we did during the day, we had to do it at night, and and we're traveling all over the country during the training cycle. It's not like we didn't just stay at Fort Lewis. I mean, we were all over the place. So we'd fly and go jump into Utah or Arizona or Fort Campbell, spend a week or two there, and then fly back to Fort Lewis and go do it again somewhere else later. And
you were always training. I mean, you were always getting ready for the next mission, the next combat deployment. So
right. And then at some point during the training cycle, every single company is on essentially an alert status. So you have to be able to go anywhere in the world within 18 hours. Now that they have reduced that, and now that time is like way shorter. I'm not going to say the exact time in public forum, but it's extremely fast. So
after your 3rd deployment, you decided to get out and become a civilian again.
yeah, I'd kind of made up my mind, but I had a plan going in, and then you lose a couple buddies that had very young sons, and it makes you think, I guess. And it's not that I was extremely worried about my life, I guess, if you will. I was prepared for that, if that's what it was. I mean, I was okay with that if that's what happened. But I wasn't willing to get married and have kids and then put any potential spouse through that, because I saw what it had done. And ironically, I'm involved. I mean, still involved with one of the guys that we lost. His son. I spend a lot of time with him and whatnot, which is a unique story in itself. But it's definitely special because he would have done the same for us. So.
And as you're going through that transition from being a ranger and coming from that life, going back to civilian life, you kind of had to find your way on this journey to where you are now, didn't you? I mean, it wasn't always an easy road.
No, there was, to say the least. There was nothing about it that was, there's a lot more tools available now than even, then. And I had it way easier than people previously, or Vietnam era, or, any of those. And, part of it is, and what I tell veterans that I work with or talk to or coach, I guess, if you want to use that term, is just put your pride aside and listen. Don't think that you have it all figured out. And because if you have a plan A, more than likely plan A is not going to be what happens. That's just the nature of it. So unless you have it so planned out, which now you can do that because they have Skill Bridge and all this other stuff that you can do. But I would say that most people, even today, don't necessarily wind up sticking with the first job that they take when they get out. They think that they have it figured out, and they don't. And but now you can do it. There's so many different things you can do to prepare for that, see if it's the right thing. There's a number of great organizations that you can go through to work with in regards to that. And I tell people, you earned it, so use it. So, they're there to help you. And that's all there is to it. But I made the mistake of as much as I liked, it took me a while, but as much as I liked Northwest Arkansas when I got out, I should have moved back to Texas because my support group was here, not in Northwest Arkansas. So I moved back up there, and I only knew one person when I moved there. And that was not a good decision, especially with what transpired on those next two rotations, when it's easy to get stuck in your own head, don't know anybody. And when you know what's happening overseas and you're just kind of sitting there waiting for the phone to ring, it's not a good spot to be.
So you went to Northwest Arkansas and you worked for the Walmart Corporation as an executive in their executive protection program.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. So yeah, I did that and wound up getting out of that, taking a bit of a break and going to college for a little bit. And I had already made the connections. The Walmart and the University of Arkansas work very closely with each other. And with the university being in Fayetteville, I wound up taking a position as a police officer there, and did that for right at 4 years, I believe. Yeah. And I loved the job. I finally felt like I had found my purpose again, if you will, which is kind of the critical point for veterans as a whole when they get out, is to find that purpose. As much as they may or may not admit to liking their job in the military, they had a purpose and they enjoyed that purpose, whether they want to admit it or not, because they were part of something greater than themselves, which in and of itself gives you purpose. So because you fill a spot that commits and contributes to a team effort. And I miss that. You don't get that even in other, whether it's executive protection or other security type stuff or private security companies, and which is, I'm involved in a lot of that now. Like, unless it's that same team that you're going to be working with day in and day out, which is rare because they're always coming and going. I mean, always coming and going. And so you're just not going to get that cohesion that you do in that same feel. And even police departments, it's similar, but it's not the military. So it's just, there's no way to it's, I mean, it's close. It's probably as close as you can probably get. But it's still not, it's not the same. And ultimately that is up to some departments are more like it and some are less like it. That is whatever culture that leadership group of that department has created. That is solely on them. That's a culture problem if they don't have that. So
That sense of purpose, a lot of our men and women that come back from deployment in the military don't have that sense of purpose whenever they get out of the military. And you at least found it with the police department to a certain extent.
yeah, and there's other ways to find it that I think are easier than trying to find it through your profession. I think numbers show that something like between 80 and 85% of Americans hate their job. That means that you're not gonna find. It's going to be difficult to find that sweet spot, right? Like, I mean, just the statistics show that. So, well, where else can you find it? Where else can you fulfill that piece of your life? I found it. I found more joy in volunteering than I did anything else. And getting out and getting involved in the community and doing things in that manner where I was helping other veterans or helping kids with disabilities or a combination of both of those. That's where I found that greatest sense of purpose.
And I think that Mary and I can certainly agree with you on that, because we're both very involved with a lot of different organizations, with a lot of different people just like us that are veterans that really find a sense of purpose in working with these nonprofits and other veterans and military and the families and first responders. It really does give you that sense of purpose.
Right. Well, I mean, and to take it I guess a bit deeper with that is it doesn't matter, male, female, whatever. Idle time is not healthy.
No,
Idle mind's the devil's workshop. So,
well, exactly. And that idle time is like kryptonite to veterans, because then our wheels start to spin, and that's not a good place for veterans to be. So
yes, especially those that have experienced what you've experienced, those that have been in combat. And that's why sometimes folks don't understand, how do we have homeless veterans? They're out on the road, they're begging at a corner. Well, a lot of those guys never faced those demons and devils. And they didn't find their purpose, and they got lost, and things didn't go quite right, and they ended up where they are today. And that's a hard part. And that's the hope, that we fix that by bringing people in and wrapping our arms around them and helping them find a purpose. Because without purpose, no human being does well. And probably why, Rick Warren's The Purpose-Driven Life was so popular at the time, was people started to realize the importance of finding a purpose in your life. Right.
So I've used this analogy before, but, and because most everybody's seen the movie, but Forrest Gump. So Forrest Gump goes to war, comes back home, does some things, and then he gets lost. Then he goes for a run. He's running from all of his problems.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then all of a sudden he says, you know what? I'm tired of running. I'm done. And then he goes and he faces those problems. And so it's whether the veterans, to get them to understand that it's best to face those problems at the beginning or as you're transitioning versus running from them and that's where I tell everybody, you got to put the pride aside, because you're going to run from them and you're going to try to find these ways around to get to that point of purpose, but you're going to constantly get lost and as a byproduct of trying to avoid those demons or those problems because you don't want to face them, because that's human nature. Your body's going to try to protect, or your mind's going to try to protect itself by not facing it, but you're ultimately just causing bigger issues.
And a lot of times those bigger issues is self-destruction.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, yeah, I mean, for me, that's exactly what it was. I mean, I took, and I tell people this too, the military by and large, and just because I come from the community, the special operations community, I can speak to it a little bit differently, I guess. The culture is you work hard, party hard. And on anniversary dates of guys that we lost or whatever, we're going to go to the store, we're going to pick up whatever it was they like to drink, and then we're going to drink that too. And if your team leader or your squad leader or whoever it is in the platoon is drinking, everybody's drinking. And so like there was always this reason to drink, and versus it being the other way around. Like, why not? I mean, this is like what I try to do now, but like, why not on those anniversary dates, we go as a platoon, maybe even with our families, and we go do something in honor of that person versus drink the day away, because that's not helping anybody. And so, because ultimately you're just pushing those feelings to the side versus facing them. And so it's definitely it's a problem that's been in, military culture for who knows how long. I mean, forever, as far as I know. But it's not necessarily. It's not the right. We know it's not the right way to deal with things, but we still do it. So it's insanity.
There was an organization that you became involved in, the GallantFew, that helped you with the struggles you had. Mm-hmm. And tell us how the GallantFew helped you, and then the Warrior's Path, that recovery that program that you went to.
Yeah, so it's just to try to set it up. So I never drank daily, but that also doesn't mean that I didn't have a problem, because I 100% did. My problem was just different than it looked different. So even as a police officer, I drink on my days off. Very common in law enforcement too, by the way, because alcohol is readily available and it's accepted. It's by society by and large. So, so I would use anniversary dates, or I would binge around those dates. So let's say the anniversary date was on a Monday, then and I would either, because I had a lot of comp time built up with overtime or whatever, I would be drinking from Friday to Tuesday, so to speak, or Friday through Monday, and then go back to work on Tuesday or Wednesday. Like, that's just how I dealt with it. And then I actually met Carl Munger, the executive director of GallantFew, in 2010 at Ranger Rendezvous. But let my pride get in the way, and I stayed in contact with him, but I didn't really, and I was always good about helping others get help, but not helping myself. And I mean, even to the point of helping start a nonprofit in Northwest Arkansas that provided service dogs to veterans. But in the background, I was still dealing with things on my own without, nobody really knew about it. I had my piece of land with my castle on it, and I stuck to my castle. When I didn't want to be around people, I wasn't. And so, but ultimately it became enough of a problem to where, and it didn't really come to a head until I moved back to Texas in 2019. But that path, and going to war, I use that term path a lot, but Warrior Path program, I put myself on light duty. I worked a really bad car accident of a student, and I'm not a big guy, and I was the only person that could fit in the car. And He had bilateral compound fractures to his legs and gaping hole in his forehead, and it was a bad accident. It took us 27 minutes to cut him out of the vehicle, head-on collision. And but I was the only one that could fit in there, and I wasn't even supposed to be working that shift, which is and now I just say I was supposed to be there, but his screams took me like straight back to Afghanistan, and I was like, man, I don't know if I need to be doing this job anymore. And so that next week, put myself on light duty, and then I burnt a bunch of comp time and other stuff that I had, and kind of like was dealing with it. Talked to Carl and different things about it. And then I went to Warrior Path program, which is a 1 week it's a 1 week intensive, and then it's an 18-month long program that you work with your team that you go through the intensive with. So, and during that intensive, I was in it with a Vietnam veteran, another GWAT veteran who was injured as well, and then his traumatic brain injury. He actually works for Warrior Path now. Great guy, or works for Boulder Crest, I should say, now, which runs that program. And then I was also in it with 3 female veterans, and I had never been exposed, because at the time Ranger Regiment was an all-male unit. I'd never been exposed to military sexual trauma. And so all 3 of these females that I went through this with were exposed to that, or were victims of that. And one of them was also a survivor of the Fort Hood incident. And so she had kind of like multiple traumas. And not to, degrade anybody's trauma. I do want to clarify that a traumatic experience to anybody can be as big or as small as what that person perceives it to be. So like, that's something that a lot of people don't get in life. Like, trauma should be validated, because if they're feeling that way and that's their perception, then that's what it is to them. So, but it opened my eyes, like, all right, I knew I had a lot of work to do. But by working through it with these other folks, that I felt like, man, I feel fortunate, because it could have been way worse. All these different things. But that the big switch was that mindset shift. And it took a while, right? It's an 18-month long program for a reason, because it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. But where you take that post-traumatic stress and you turn it into post-traumatic growth, and how you can use your traumatic experiences to help other people, versus it just constantly being a stress. So that's where the growth factor comes in, and that's where the big change happens. So one of my goals when I was there was to stop drinking. It took me a year from the time I went to that program to the time I quit drinking. I actually was arrested at my doorstep in Flower Mound when I moved back to Texas on the Army's birthday. And I don't even call it the arrest. I call it the intervention, if you will, because it changed my life, and for the better. Fast forward 5 years, I haven't had a drink since. So, and now I've been able to help other veterans get sober and different things like that. And so, yeah, it was one of those things that my divorce and dealing with the other stuff, it all kind of compounded on each other. And I still had never really like faced what exacerbated the stress and the moral injury and all the other stuff, the survivor's guilt. I never faced what exacerbated that, and that was alcohol. Alcohol is what exacerbated it, because I was never able to confront the feelings being sober. So like it's completely different feeling. It sounds crazy, but I promise it's such a different way of dealing with it. And that clarity that you get once you've been sober for, you know, I tell everybody just give it 90 days. Like 45 is great, but like give it 90 because you'll really, it takes a minimum of 45 days to work completely for alcohol to work completely out of your system to where there's not a trace of it. And so that fogginess of alcohol, that chemical in your system that you're sober, but that chemical still trace elements of it are still causing fogginess in the brain. And when that goes away, it's a game changer. And I never want to feel like crap again. So I enjoy just not.
You enjoy life now.
Oh yeah, and I just enjoy not I enjoy knowing that I don't have to wake up that way the next day. And as you get older, you don't recover like you did when you were 22, 23 years old. It just doesn't happen. And so um, it's just different. But yeah, I July 8th of 2019, I sat down and wrote a mission statement for my life and said, I'm going to treat this mission statement like a mission in the military and apply, the Ranger Creed to it, and which, you're going to complete the mission, right? Like failure is not an option. And so it doesn't matter what unit you're in. If you treat your mission statement like a mission in the military, you can't fail. And then you set up your success by doing short-term and long-term goals that align with that mission statement. And success is like, for me, it made getting sober easy. So,
And from that point, you've become more involved at helping others. I mean, you work with the GallantFew, and then you also had that project Exodus Relief whenever the United States was withdrawing from Afghanistan. And tell us how that project Exodus worked, and because you helped thousands and thousands of people that had been our partners in Afghanistan, and American or Afghan Americans, you helped them get out of Afghanistan.
yeah, so that was unique. It wouldn't have happened at all if it wasn't um, for the sobriety. Like I wouldn't have had that opportunity because I know if I wasn't sober and I was drinking, I know how I'd have felt about it and what I would have been doing. But I was able to take that energy and put it to use for good at the time. But essentially, a bunch of special operations veterans, we got together through Project Exodus Relief. Me and a friend, really, he started it, and I helped him, and then uh, it was us, Pineapple Express, um, and a number of other nonprofits that worked together, where we were all up on comms, if you will, with each other. We had interactive maps that we were working, and we were just working it. It was a daily grind, and yeah, it was an awesome. It was very special for sure, to be able to help the ones that we could. Unfortunately, it was just we didn't have enough time to get everybody, but and the government wasn't prepared at all. They still aren't. I mean, there's Afghans stuck in Pakistan. There's Afghans getting murdered every day in Afghanistan. I mean, they're paying the Taliban between 40 and $80 million a week currently, which is just insane. And I blame that's not a political statement. That's both administrations are guilty of that. One, Trump's administration started the Doha Accords. Biden's carried them out, and they're still carrying them out, even though the Taliban's never lived up to their end of the bargain. So, like, an agreement's in place, because if one or the other deviates from what they're what they're supposed to be doing, you can back out of it. But we haven't backed out for whatever reason. So that's the frustrating part for us. But I'm super grateful for the people that we did get out. Especially my sister was actually involved in one. She connected me with a female Army veteran that started an organization that helped Afghan women called Ascend Leadership Through Athletics. And I was able to lead out all of their entire group. Everybody that wanted to make it out got out. And Patagonia actually put together a really awesome video on YouTube of that group, and it brings me to tears every time I watch it. But because what I tell veterans is like, because they often will ask, or the conversation will come up, well, did our guys die for nothing, or was the war for nothing? You can choose to believe one way or the other ultimately, but I choose to believe that they died for something. One is we know what's happening now that we're gone. And there's 27, it's actually more than 30 now. There's more than 30 Al-Qaeda training camps. Al-Qaeda has never been stronger, and we've only been gone a few years. And that's, so our presence, whenever we're operating in a stronghold such as that, allows us to keep the enemy on their heels so they can't attack us here on the homeland. So no, it wasn't for nothing. And we also were able to change the course of history for thousands of Afghans for generations, that if we weren't there, who knows where they would be. But that there's something inherently special about and unique about the U.S. military, and the fact that we're willing to go overseas and assist people that can't protect themselves. That's special. I think that's the good of America, and the when you see the kids overseas, wherever you are in the world, and they see that flag on your shoulder, or and they say American Americans or whatever, they're expecting you to have candy or whatever it may be. But that's the hope that we bring to the darkest places of the world that no other country does. That is what makes our country great. And truth is, we've always been great. It's just any country, all of us have improvement. We've got room to improve. It's just that's the nature. That's human nature. And we've got to recognize that. But we're good at a lot of things. We're really good at a lot of things. But we also have places that we could be better.
Always room for improvement, isn't there?
Absolutely. If there wasn't, I mean, what's the point, right? I mean, the biggest thing for me that I want to see happen with any, I don't like taking things political, but it's hard not to. But the only thing I really care, because I'm a very apolitical person for the most part, I care about the country as a whole. I don't care about Democrat, Republican, whatever. Obviously, policies are policies. It's easy to look and where people lean one way or the other. But what's best for the nation? That's all that should matter. At the end of the day, what's best for the vast majority of Americans? If it's not, then it shouldn't happen. And I want to see the American government, if we're going to promise any foreign nation anything, we need to be willing to carry that out and not literally walk away from them.
We don't have a very good track record at carrying it out. I mean,
No.
The Vietnamese can tell us about that. The
Right.
Iraqis and the Afghans can certainly tell us about that. Because, I mean, it's terrible whenever you go in there and people are risking their lives to partner with us and help us help their country. And then in all three instances, we just walk away, almost.
Right. And I still get messages from families in Afghanistan that we had guys with 3-letter agencies living with them, embedded within the villages that they took care of in their house, and we just left these people to be slaughtered. That, you know, that can't happen. Like, that's just, it's wrong. There's just no other way to put it, ultimately. And I understand that we can't save everybody, and I do believe that at some point you have to push people to say, you got to step up and fight for your own country at some point. I do believe that. Um, but you also have to show those people the way and have things set up to where they can kind of do that without just walking away from them.
And that's kind of the frustrating part, because we do go in, we do train them, and we think that they're going to be able to, take our training and our equipment and defend themselves, and then they get overtaken, like in Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. So,
Well, the biggest issue with that, and I just, there's two things that you can look at to say that it all starts and ends with DC, but politically they tie our hands and they do not allow the soldiers and the Marine Corps and the airmen and all of us as a collective group of the DoD to do our jobs. If they would take the handcuffs off and allow us to do our jobs, you would see what happened to ISIS, and you would see them crumble fairly quickly. We could have done the same thing. It's just they didn't do it. It was hearts and minds. I'm sorry, but you're not going to win hearts and minds in an area where it's Sunni versus Shiite and everything else, where it's been that way for thousands of years. You got to eradicate the enemy. It's that simple.
well, we've enjoyed having you here today, and just want to give a shout out to GallantFew, and here's their website. It's a great organization. I know Carl and some other people that work with that organization, and like all other organizations, they're a nonprofit organization, and donations are always welcome, because hadn't been for those people that support that organization, you might not be here today telling your story. So,
I will say that I 100% agree that I don't know, not intentionally wouldn't be here, but there's a very good chance that unintentionally. I mean, I was slowly killing myself just with the poison of alcohol, and unfortunately, the young man that's here with me, his mother, his father was the ranger that was killed in 2010. His mother died of alcoholism at 30 years old, the same month that I got sober, and so I know for a fact that I probably wasn't. I don't know where I was behind her. It could have been a couple of years, could have been whatever, but I do know that without getting the help and having the help of GallantFew and the other core group of mentors that I put around me at that time, it wouldn't have happened. So I implore every veteran to get a team together of people that you can go to. Make that your fire team.
absolutely. Well, PK, thank you very much for being on Hometown Heroes today. Mary had to step out. She had to go attend a funeral of one of our Vietnam veterans. So, we're always serving. We appreciate you for serving our nation, and now serving our veterans and their families and military. So, PK, thank you for being on Hometown Heroes.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you having me, Rick. Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you in person soon.
Likewise, sir.
You have a good day.
You too.
Wow, what a story that was. PK is another great American that we've had on the podcast. And like I said, Mary had to step out to go to a funeral. Last Friday, I attended the service for Colonel Ken Cordner, POW, Vietnam, spent over 6 years in the Hanoi Hilton and other camps they moved him around to. This was a large military honor funeral. Had a lot of people from the Air Force, and this is the first time I've seen a lot of flyovers with a missing man formation, but this one in particular had our F-35. So this is the first time I've seen the F-35s do the missing man formation. So it was a great send-off. We had a nice reception after the graveside, and then the next day we had the celebration of life at the Frontier Museum over in Dallas. And at the graveside, these were the POWs that were there to honor Ken. And, probably collectively they had 20, 30 years of time being prisoners of war. Later that afternoon, I went to a birthday party for one of our roll call World War II veterans. This is Bill McIntyre, turned 104 years old and as sharp as a tack. Mary and I were both there to celebrate his birthday. And then Saturday, I had the great honor to see one of our friends that had spoke at roll call. This is Lucky Luckadoo, 102 years old. He was a bomber pilot in World War II. So just some great Americans out there that are still alive and kicking. I was really impressed when at 102, I walked out with Lucky thinking there was a car sitting out there at the valet parking to pick him up. But as I went on into the parking lot, he was with me. He goes out and gets in his car. This is at the Frontiers of Flight Museum in Dallas by Love Field. Gets in his car and takes off at 102. I hope I'm still driving at 102. But Lucky Luckadoo, a great American. Friday night, the 19th, we're going to have the Patriot Roundup, and that's the Air Power Foundation. And we're going to have some great guests. And there's some of the people from the Air Power Foundation with us, and one of our guests that we'll have talking to us at the Patriot Roundup. There's still time to get tickets. That's airpowerfoundation.org. You can go there and find out more about it. Saturday the 20th at the Old Town Ice House, the Battling Betties are going to have their second annual event as a fundraiser for roll call, and that is from 2 to 4, I think, is a time, or 1,200 to 1,500. The next thing that afternoon, our great friend Larry O'Neill, Fort Worth Memories Museum, and the one that was totally instrumental in getting our podcast up and going, is going to have his annual Boxing in Cowtown program at the Old South Pancake House. Starts at 5 o'clock. We'll have some of the great boxers from Fort Worth, past and present there. So make plans to attend that. It's a great event. It's free. Of course, the Old South Pancake House would like for you to have dinner there. So come and see us at Boxing in Cowtown. And October the 13th, Roll Call's having their second annual clay shoot. There's still time to sign up for a team, and certainly still time for being a sponsor. So a lot of things going on. Roll Call, we don't have it this month in July. We'll have it next month. And if you aren't part of the Roll Call, you need to go in and go to their website at roll-call.org. You can sign up to get our monthly newsletter. And there's also, whenever you sign up, you'll also get notification whenever the reservation line is open. This coming August, we will have the roll call for probably about 6 months at the Willow Park Baptist Church, just west of Fort Worth in Willow Park. They're doing some renovations to where we typically have it at Birchman Baptist Church. So we're looking forward to the next roll call meeting. So for Mary and myself,